Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the special Easter edition of Mornings with Mikala. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. So as you can see here in front of me, I have 12 Easter eggs. Inside each of these eggs is a little object and then a story about how that plays a part in God's Easter story. So these eggs are going to help me tell the Easter story. Let's get started. Here's our first egg. Let's see what's inside. It's a leaf. How do you think a leaf tells the Easter story? Well, let's read this little card and find out. Jesus went to Jerusalem to celebrate the Passover. He rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. A large crowd spread their branches and leaves on the road. These people shouted, "Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest heaven." In this egg, we had a leaf that represents the palm branches that the people were waving and laying on the ground as Jesus rode into Jerusalem. Let's see what's in our next egg. There's 3 coins, 3 silver coins. Let's see how that plays a part in Jesus' story. Judas, one of Jesus' 12 disciples, went to the chief priests to betray Jesus to them. They gave him 30 pieces of silver. So our 3 pieces of silver coins here represent Judas betraying Jesus and the 30 coins that he got. Let's see what's in our next egg. It's a little towel. Let's see how this tells us about Jesus' story. During the Passover meal, Jesus got up, took off his outer clothes, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a large bowl and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around his waist. This towel represents when Jesus washed his disciples' feet. Let's see what's in our next egg. It's a piece of bread. Jesus was eating the Passover meal with his 12 disciples. He took the bread, just like this piece, and gave thanks, broke it, and gave it to his disciples, saying, "This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." In the same way, Jesus took the cup and said, "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." They all ate the bread and drank from the cup. This bread represents communion and the Last Supper that Jesus had with his disciples. This is kind of like when we do communion at church. Let's see what's in our next egg. It's a flower. Let's see how this flower tells Jesus' story. After the Passover meal, Jesus went with his disciples to the garden to pray. This flower represents their time spent in the garden praying. Let's see what's in our next egg. It's a piece of rope. When Jesus finished praying in the garden, Judas came to the garden with some soldiers and officials. The chief priests and Pharisees had sent them. They carried torches, lanterns, and weapons. They arrested Jesus and tied him up. So this rope represents when Jesus was arrested and tied up. Let's see what's in our next egg. Ooh, I don't even want to touch this one. This is a thorny branch. I don't know if you can see all the thorns in this, but it's a very thorny branch. The soldiers took off Jesus' clothes and put a purple robe on him. They twisted thorns together to make a crown and placed it on his head. They then spit on him, hit him repeatedly on his head, and pretended to worship him as the king of the Jews. This thorny branch represents the crown that the soldiers put on Jesus' head. Let's see what's in our next egg. It's 3 nails. Let's see how these represent Jesus' story. After the soldiers finished mocking Jesus, the soldiers took Jesus and nailed him to a cross. These nails represent when Jesus was nailed to the cross and crucified. Let's see what comes next in this story. It's a spear with blood. Let's see how this represents Jesus' story. After Jesus' crucifixion, one of the soldiers pierced Jesus' side with a spear before his body was taken down from the cross. This represents when Jesus' side was pierced after his crucifixion. Let's see what's next. It's a white cloth. Let's see how this is part of the story. A man named Joseph asked for the body of Jesus. Joseph wrapped the body in spices and strips of linen, then placed it in a new tomb cut out of rock. This piece of white cloth represents when Joseph wrapped Jesus' body and placed it in the tomb. Let's see what's next. It's a rock. Let's see how this plays a part in Jesus' story. Joseph placed Jesus in a tomb, rolled a large stone in front of the entrance, and went away. Later, the chief priests and Pharisees put a seal on the stone and posted some guards there. This rock represents the stone that was rolled in front of Jesus' tomb. This is our last egg. Let's see what's inside. It's empty. Let's see how this is a part of Jesus' story. On the third day after Jesus' crucifixion, the woman brought spices to the tomb to anoint Jesus' body. But they saw the stone in front of Jesus' tomb had rolled away, and the body of Jesus was not there. An angel told them, "Jesus is not here. He has risen from the dead." This empty Easter egg represents that Jesus is no longer in the tomb and he has risen from the dead. And this is why the Easter story is so important, is because of this empty egg or the empty tomb. Thank you so much for being a part of the Easter story with me. I hope you learned something and enjoyed the way that the story was told. Challenge! It's challenge time, guys. For today's challenge, I want you to spend time with friends or family or whoever it is that you love. Spend this Easter day with them and tell them about the Easter story that you just learned about. Go out there and spread some love today, guys. See you tomorrow.
Happy Easter!